The Rock Whisperer. Do you hear the earth talking to you?
All right, today we're going to be talking a little bit about graphing and how to set up graphs on actual graph paper. We'll be doing that for a good part of the year, but we'll also be able to do some things on Excel. So for graphing, a couple things that we're going to always need on every graph. One, you're going to need a title for your graph, something that relates to the graph that we're doing. You need labels on both your X and your Y axis. Those labels should also have units. You can't just tell me time. You need to tell me what unit you're measuring time in. Some sort of key, especially when we have multiple lines on there, in even spacing or even increments. So if you're making your X and Y axis and you're using one block equals 10, one block always needs to equal 10 on that X axis. Then on your Y axis, you can have a different spacing, but it has to be even. So let me show you how I would like you to set up graphs for me. So depending on the graph and what space depends on if we set up our paper this way or if we're going to set up our paper going in this particular direction. For the graph that we're going to make today, we want our paper to be set up this way. I do what I consider to be the 3-block rule. So I would count right here, 1, 2, 3. You don't have to write those numbers down, but I'm just showing you. So it's actually 2.5, but 3 blocks before you draw your x-axis. That gives you plenty of room down here to write your labels and your numbers. Then over here on your y-axis, this first one is, there's pretty much nothing there, so this would be 1, 2, 3 going that way. And then we would draw in our y-axis. On this particular sheet, we have our title. We'll make a title for this one. We're going to call this temperature versus time. We need a label and units for both of those. So on here, our x-axis is going to be time. And for most of our labs, we'll be doing minutes. Over here on our y-axis, we'll call this temperature. And we're usually going to be using degrees Celsius for that. Next, we need some sort of key. So over here, we could, no data is going to be in this section, we could easily put in some sort of key that we need. And then for that key, let's say that if we have squares, that's going to be our cold cup. And if we have triangles, that's going to be the hot cup. We could also do that to show with different colors, for different color lines. Then the last one is our even spacing and even increments. In science, you don't always have to start at 0, 0 as this intersection. If it's a data point that we're using, then you definitely want to make that a 0. So for time, we are usually going to start with time 0. And let's say we come out to here, and we want to make that 5. 2 blocks equals 5. Then the next 2 blocks has to be 5. That's 10. 2 more blocks is 15. 2 more blocks is 20. 2 more blocks would be 25. 2 more would be 30. And then you would continue on. On our temperature side, let's say that our lowest temperature is 20 degrees. We could then start on this line, our lowest temperature would be 20. Let's say that our temperature, we're going to go by ones, 21, 22. That would be 23. Our numbers are starting to get close together here. So we're going to skip and go 24, 26, 28, and continue on. We want to use as much of this as is possible so we can better be able to see the trend that we are doing. So try to make your graph take up the whole 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Then, depending on the type of graph we're making, this would be a line graph if we're using for the hot and cold cup. Then we could continue on with that. If you have any questions on how to set up your axes or where to put your labels or what units to use, then just ask. The first one we're going to be starting with is plotting the sunspot cycles. All right, that's it for now. Thanks.
Don't forget to listen to the Earth. You just may hear it speak.